Welcome to Animal Posse, the podcast dedicated to the people and rescues making a difference in the lives of animals. Today, I am visiting with Dr. Mark, animal advocate and published author. I am actually at Mark's Animal Rescue, and you could just hear the dog in the background. How are you doing today, Mark?
I'm doing fine. He's a little rescue I got about a year ago.
Yeah,
Somebody didn't want him. Anyway, he's been part of my family for about a year now.
you were episode one, and you are, of course, a rescuer, a published author, an advocate, and a former deputy sheriff. So, for all of our new listeners, let's just share your journey a little bit about how you got into animal advocacy.
As a young child, I always loved animals. Always had animals from the age of 6 years old, and I kind of grew up with animals. I guess where I really became a strong advocate was during my time, my early years. I was in my 20s, just made 21, went to work for the East Baton Rouge Sheriff's Office. Well, during my tenure there as a sheriff deputy, we went to, during that period of time, and I'm sure it still happens now, but I've been out of that business for a long time, but there were a lot of family fights. We would go there and try to resolve family fights or take care of whatever's going on. But one thing I did notice as an animal person, that even the people that I rode with, because I was a junior man in the car, that means I had really no say so. But senior men really had the say so in the car. But one of the things I noticed was every time that we would get involved in a family issue and somebody went to jail, the bottom line is what happens to the animal? Because most people did have animals, whether they got treated good or not. But the point is that when we left there, there was no one to take care of the animal. Nobody cared. So, way back in 1969, 70, 71, animals, even back then, people just did not care. And I had this soft spot for animals that always, and it's been part of who I am. And I was always amazed to see how people just does not look at animals as a living being. They look at them, I can't even describe it, but it doesn't matter. They're just an animal. We've all heard that term. They're just animals. They're not just animals, they're sentient beings. They do express that. He has been around an animal, they express fear, one of the biggest things. They're great at loving people. They're very devoted. They present all of those things that I wish we as a human being would possess. But unfortunately, I don't find that in a lot of my interaction with people. We've gotten so cold hearted that things have changed, especially as today I'm 79 years old, soon to be 80. I've seen such a change in people over the many years that I've grown up and been a part of this world. But anyway, the animals did not get treated well back then. And it's not much different in all these years. Animals are still considered property. And I don't know if people know that or how many people know that, but animals are considered property. They're not part of your family. They're just an animal. They are property. And when anytime you have any legal issues, you're going through a divorce or you're going through whatever you're going through, animals are still considered property and nothing more than. Well, when you consider animals property and not as a sentient being, then it's very difficult to just be around those type of people because I don't share a lot of the things that I think people just about animals that they just don't care. They're just there. Anyway, and the other thing that I've seen as a deputy, and that's unfortunate because I've got a lot of not so good stories as a deputy with animals, is that I've seen many animals that are forgotten in backyards. They're locked up in houses after evictions. They're left on parish roads. Now, to this day, I live in a rural parish. I live in Mount Hermon, Louisiana, Washington Parish. I've been here almost 7 years. And in that amount of time, I have saved over 2,000 plus animals on the parish roads here in Washington. But anyway, I got carried away with that answer. But anyway, that was one of the reasons that inspired me. Between being a rescuer of 10 years, a deputy sheriff, I became a strong animal advocate, and that is my passion. And so that's probably one of the biggest reasons is because I've seen so much neglect and just outright abuse by people that I had to do something. So anyway, this is what I do every day, 7 days a week. I work as an animal advocate.
How many books have you written about animal advocacy?
21 books.
Today, one of the books that I wanted to specifically discuss is one of your newer ones called Soul of the Silent. Now, I really like the title of that too, because you touched on this a little bit about how people treat animals, and people almost treat animals as if they do not have souls.
That's right.
And of course, I do not believe that at all. Animals definitely have souls. You can look in their eyes and you can tell, you can see a lot about them just by looking in their eyes. So, I wanted to talk about Soul of the Silent today and let me know what inspired you to write Soul of the Silent.
When I say how we treat animals, it really reflects who we are. I mean, our actions toward the most vulnerable, those who have no voice, there's no defense, no standing in society. It reveals the true state of our own hearts. If we respond with compassion, it shows that kindness and empathy guide us. But if we can ignore suffering in an animal, it says something about the limits of our own humanity. And it's unfortunate, and it really is unfortunate because being in the rescue business for 10 years, working as a sheriff deputy for 7 years, and just being around people and talking to people, and even those with animals today who have animals, it doesn't mean that they come from a good home, that animal is staying in a good home. Because many people have this idea that if if animals, oh, they have a home. What kind of home is that? What kind of home are they being raised into? Because how many times have I seen and gone out to a home that the dog is chained up in the backyard? A lot of times don't even have shelter, no food, no water. And if they do have water, it's dirty, and who knows when the last time they ate. It's just so unbelievable to me that people can truly ignore what God has gave us. God said, and I don't quote the Bible there, but I do have some idea of things because I do refer to the Bible a lot in terms of animals. But you know what God made was good. It was in Genesis. God made everything good. He made animals. But people don't look at animals as something that we should respect, that we have any kind of love for. It's like it goes back to the saying, it's just an animal. It's property. And what really and truly concerns me, and I know I get off on tangents about this, but one of the things that I find is that my three core things that I do as an animal advocate, and I'll get off on that, is that number one is I'm always going after government, local government. I'm going after law enforcement. I'm going after churches. And let's take government first. Local government, for the most part, not all of them, but for the ones that I've seen, in my opinion, is that there's a lot of parishes, particularly in South, I want to say South Louisiana, but that's not South United States, in the southern part of the United States. It's a lot different how animals get treated than the animals get treated up in the northern part of the country. And I'm not north south. I'm not getting into that, but it's just what I've seen as a military person. I've stationed all over the world. In the north, I find that animals got a little bit better treatment. They had the laws were more enforced, and that doesn't refer to every state. A lot of the states that I happen to be stationed in, I saw some good things. I come south, and just for example, in the deep south where I live at, an animal for the most part is a yard dog. They're just yard dogs. or it could be a cat or anything. They're just thrown out into the yard. There's no care, there's no vet care, there's no interacting with the animal. They're just there. And that I find that just so difficult to believe. And what happens is our own local government, and I don't mean where I live at or anything like that. This could refer to many parishes or counties who suffer the same thing. They don't have animal ordinances. There are just no animal ordinances. And if they do have animal ordinances, you get into this with the law enforcement. And as a law enforcement officer, I can tell you firsthand that it has not changed very much. It's not that they can't do it, it's that animals are not a priority for law enforcement. It's just not because they are. And the first things I hear about is we don't have the resources, we don't have the manpower. Those are the things I hear all the time. And I'll get off on this tangent a little bit. As far as law enforcement is concerned and being a former deputy sheriff, there are ways and there are people who are willing to volunteer to do things. We have a lot of, throughout the country, we have a lot of reserve deputies that work, a lot of reserve officers that want to do the job. And they don't get paid. They're volunteers. They're volunteer reserve officers. In the law enforcement, you can take a volunteer deputy, a reserve deputy, and put him into a program that gives him some training in animal abuse. You can take an administrative deputy. Well, people say, what is it? Administrative deputy is a deputy who is not a trained officer. In other words, they don't go to the law enforcement training academy. They can be hired as a deputy, and they call them admin deputies. They have no rights of arrest, but they do represent the sheriff's office. They can, if the sheriff allows, they can write tickets. They can write citations for people who don't do what's right when it comes to animals. So if you take, say, three to five admin deputies, train them properly in animal care and animal abuse, they can do a great job for a parish or a county. They can do a really good job. And the thing about it is, what does it cost the sheriff? Actually, it costs the sheriff a lot of times. And I'm thinking in this parish and other parishes that these people can get. They give them insurance. It's like a $10,000 life insurance for them, but they don't pay them anything. My suggestion is you divide one vehicle. If you say you don't have a lot of resources, one vehicle, but you always have one person on duty, or if someone has an animal issue, they can call. If you have like one person is representing your animal services, well, that one person is not going to be around all the time. And so you call and say, our animal services person is not available. I've got this dog out here that's been thrown out in the roadway. And you mean you got nobody to come out? The answer is no. For the most part, they do not. And that's unfortunate. And it happens all throughout the country. It's just not locally, say where I live, but it happens all throughout the country. But it's an easy fix. It's just not a priority for most leaders in law enforcement. And I don't know if it ever will be. And that's an unfortunate. So that's my thing with law enforcement. They could do a much better job at no cost to them, very little cost to them, and really and truly help animals. My third point is churches. I have a real thing about churches, and people have gotten really upset with me because I don't attend church like I used to. I was a big church goer. I grew up in the church, grew up in the Baptist religion, and even way back then, I've never, ever heard any preacher that I can remember ever say a prayer for one animal. Not a blessing, not anything. Pray for animals, do anything. That has not changed in all the years that I have gone to church. And believe me, I've attended many different types of churches all over the country, and I have yet to hear a pastor get up in front of his congregation and say, let's pray for the animal. I've never heard it to this day. And that bothers me a whole lot because even our pastors that who represent, I think of what I want to say here. Anyway, they're the leaders in our religious society. Supposedly, we look up to them for different things. They're not there. They're just not there. They don't say anything. My suggestion is, because I wrote another book, but I won't get into that book. But anyway, my suggestion to churches is that you go to church, you sit in the pew, you give an offering, you sing a few songs, listen to the preacher, you go home. Well, you know what? Everything is inside those four walls of that church. But as soon as you walk out of those four walls, what do you see? I'll tell you what, abused animals thrown away, right? Could be right outside the church door. And what does people do? Walk on by. Not my problem. It's not my problem. You know what? And that really bothers me that you can go to church and maybe call yourself a Christian, but yet you do nothing outside of those four walls. My suggestion was that people take at least one Sunday, let's say every 6 weeks, and become a part of the community. That when I say that is take 2 miles, let's just 2 miles around your church, and you find out, and I don't mean just animals, people too. You find out, do those people around your church have, do they need anything? Or do they have any issues that we as a church can help them with? Take one Sunday, instead of inside the four walls, you go outside the four walls and you help people in your community. You wouldn't believe what a difference it would make in a community if people would just do that. But they don't. It's like a ritual. You go to church every Sunday, you go inside the four walls, you do your cultural thing, and then you leave, and nothing else happens. And I've gone to churches with many people who, and I've seen firsthand how people just ignore animals. It doesn't matter. And people too, my thing, of course, my passion is animals. And I get on these long rants, but anyway, go ahead, Dixie. You want to ask me something? I'll just talk forever. Sometimes.
That's quite all right. I did want to touch on that too, what you said about churches, because actually there's some situations that I have recently seen on social media.
Okay.
And one was there was this cat that showed up at this church, and the priest just wants it gone. And the priest isn't willing to work with a trapper, to have a trapper come just humanely remove the cat, or better yet, just TNR the trap neuter and release the cat. Instead, the priest is actually threatening to take it upon himself to trap the cat and just go dump the cat somewhere else.
I can give you a lot of stories exactly like that. Just within the 6 years I've been here, I've had 3 rescue incidents here that persons from the church, they were called, saying, we got animals over here. Somebody needs to come get them. We don't want them here. One of them was a preacher. We don't want that animal. I don't even know what to say or how to answer that. Here you are, a leader of your church, a man of God. Animals are mentioned in the Bible from Genesis to Revelations. All throughout the Bible, God basically says throughout the Bible that he gave us animals. That whatever his creatures he gave us are good. Everything he gave us was good. He gave it to us for a reason. But we as humanity, we abuse that. We absolutely abuse it. And for me, and I don't have a good answer for you, Dixie, I don't understand that mindset that religious leaders, particularly religious leaders, you go in church every Sunday and give you a verse after verse and tell you all about this verse and the love of God and the love of this and the love of, but yet you never hear it about animals.
Yeah, it's true. It's funny because I have some family that is highly religious, go to church every Sunday,
Yeah.
and they had some cats show up by them, and one of them was actually threatening harm to them. And it's like, I just don't understand that. I have respect for all creatures. Now, I don't consider myself religious. I'm spiritual, but not religious. I don't really follow an organized religion, but at the same time, I could never do that to an animal. Instead of finding somebody to help, and there are plenty of people who are willing to help animals. What role does your faith play in your advocacy?
I'm like you. I'm the same thing. I am not. a religious person. I really stopped of going inside churches because the churches need to change the way they are today because I think religion today has become a ritual, and that's pretty much what it is. My faith is more spiritual, and I wish I knew psychology of man and how sometimes we think, but I don't. And I say that because I grew up with a giving heart. I grew up with compassion. It's not something I had to learn. I never had to learn compassion. I just did not. And I don't even know if it's a learned thing. Mine just comes with me. I was like that as a child. I've been like that as a young adult and as an older male now. I have never changed. I look at things and it melts my heart. If I see something that just is particularly animals, they're so innocent, but yet people just don't care. So I got to wonder what makes them, how are they different? Why are they different than me? Don't they see the same thing I see? Don't they see that animal is suffering? Do they just don't care? What kind of heart, what kind of soul do they actually have? And the good thing is that at least I do know people that feel the same way I do. I've talked to them, I'm around them. We share the same compassion, the same love for animals. But there's many more that do not. Even as you, again, I hate to use that term again, but it's just an animal. People don't get it. I just don't think you get it. It's not just an animal, it's God's creation. We're all God's creations. And that's why I say I'm not religious, but I'm extremely spiritual.
I see what you're talking about too with a lack of compassion. And also, I find it even with a lot of people who want a pet. When I have animals that are up for adoption, I am very picky with who they go to. And the reason that I am is because I'm going to put all of my time and love and effort and dedication into those animals to make sure that they're well taken care of. And I don't want to turn around and adopt them to somebody who isn't going to do the same. I don't want to adopt them to somebody who just wants a pet. I want to adopt them to somebody who wants a family member.
Totally agree. Let me ask you a question because we're talking about compassion. And you remember a time that you weren't like you are today? Let's say, did you come up like I did? Did you come up with love and compassion and it was just part of who you are?
Yes, yes. I've always been that way around animals. From the youngest I can remember, I have always been involved with animals. And I've grown up with the importance of spay and neuter, which is weird too, because I have heard other people, other guests who are from the North say that there is a huge culture shock in the South when they come to the South and they experience animal rescue here. And it's weird because this is what I'm used to. This is what I've grown up with because I've always been in the South. But again, I've always been a spay neuter advocate from the time that I can remember growing up in the 80s. If I had a pet, they were spayed or neutered.
Right.
And so I always bring that up. What do you think the difference is? Because they say that in the North, people just treat the animals totally different. They treat them more as like a family member. And here we just don't do that. A lot of people, like you said, they just don't care.
I don't know if it's the mentality or not. I actually was born in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, but for the most part, I left Louisiana when I was about 25 years, 26 years old, and I never came back south again. I've been back now about 6 years, and so a better part of my life I've spent in the military, traveling. And when I was in the north, their local government there, they had ordinances, and people were required to have their animals licensed. They were required to have spay and neuter, and you actually had to address those issues. Coming south here and being a rescue here in South Louisiana, it's atrocious what I've seen here and how people treat animals. And the reality is that a lot of people just don't care. And this is Louisiana's, I'm not a hunter, so I'm not saying anything about hunters or what have you, but it's a different world than what I'm used to. And it has taken me a while, and I still have not gotten used to how people can just go out and kill animals. They think nothing about it, abuse animals here, throw animals on the roadside. I just rescued three puppies not too long ago. We have a a busy highway here called LA 38 in Mount Hermon, Louisiana. I was just coming home, just on my way home from the store. There's three little puppies on the side of the road. I almost ran over one of them, stopped. I'm one of those persons who are not going to leave an animal, and particularly puppies, on the side of a road, because I'm gonna tell you, their life there is going to be death. They're going to get run over. And the other thing is, and people say, somebody asked me, say, why are you always seeing puppies on the road? Let me tell you the biggest reason why people don't know this. You know why you find dogs and stuff on the side of the road? You see them a lot. I'll tell you why. Because when the owner dropped them off, those dogs, those same dogs, think that owner's coming back. So they stay there. They will stay there weeks at a time unless something happens to them. And that's why you find many dogs out on the roadway, because if they're dropped, discarded, dumped, whatever words you want to use, that's where they stay. Because in their mind, that person who dropped them off is coming back to get them. And dogs don't go straying off in the way back up in the woods. They're on the roadway. And when you see all these animals that have been killed that people call roadkill, it's a horrible term as far as I'm concerned. But animals killed on the road, particularly a lot of dogs and cats as well, you just can't get away from it, is that the fact is they don't leave the roadway and they stay there. And that's why they wind up being killed on the
Yeah, it's a sad situation. We just got a kitten that was actually dumped in a swamp. And you could tell when we got the kitten home that the kitten had been eating mud, swamp mud, trying to survive. Very emaciated, thin. So we got the kitten in, got him dewormed, got rid of the fleas on him. It's finally starting to gain some weight, but very sweet kitten. So this was not a feral kitten that grew up in the swamp. Somebody had to go dump the
Yeah,
kitten
they
there.
went and dumped it. Oh, absolutely. They dump, like I said, it may even be more. But since I started counting the animals I rescued, it's been 2,000 plus. I just dumped on the side of the road about 3 months ago, maybe 4 months ago. And I've said this story many times. I do a lot of YouTube stuff. I have two YouTube channels, and one of them's called Heart to Heart with Dr. Mark. But on that YouTube channel, I'm always curious. I'm a very curious person in terms of when I was coming home, there were many buzzards flying. And it looked like from where I was, it was flying over my house. I always worry because I got a big animal rescue that something happened, but it wasn't my house. So I followed where those buzzards were. Make a long story short is those buzzards were hanging right over and they were already on the ground. There were six puppies, about 6 to 8 weeks old, that somebody had discarded on one of the country roads. And it was sickening. It was absolutely sickening. I could not let that go. And I'm glad to this day, and fortunately for me, they all got homes. I got them homes. But to this day, how does somebody go out and dump six little puppies on the side of a country road? There's no houses, there's no nothing. And those buzzards were about 10 feet away, waiting for them to die. And so, fortunately, I followed my instincts and went and I picked up all six puppies. But the point is, I'll never know. I hear this question asked all the time. How can people do this? How can they? I don't know how. I don't have the answer. I just don't.
Another trend, too, that I tend to see is a lot of people who may see a situation where an animal does need help, but rather than step up and help or do something to actually physically help, they'll just go post it on social media like, oh, hey, this animal needs help over there. And so it's like, how do you even get people like that even more involved to help? Because they're in the situation where they can help.
That's another whole issue with me. I've done so many books, and sometimes I go into one book and another. But one of the books I wrote too was Silent Stewards. There's the other one. Let me turn around here for a minute because I got so many. The other one's called Bystander Nation. If your audience ever gets an opportunity, just go to Amazon, Dr. Mark McMorris Jr. Now, I'm not here to sell my books, but if you're interested in getting them, because if you are interested in being an animal advocate and really want to learn about, what it's like to be an animal advocate, I have several great books that you can get that will give you that information, all of that information. It truly will educate you if you're interested in helping animals. But the question, and I got off on a tangent, refresh my memory.
So it was talking about the people who will go post looking for help, but without actually helping.
Yes.
Now, the only positive thing that I can say about that is there are a lot of individuals who will go help. It's frustrating sometimes that they're in that situation where the animal needs the help immediately and they would just rather post it than just help. But fortunately, sometimes it does get the animals the help that they need.
Let me address that.
Sure.
Let me tell you how people can help. And they really should start doing this because I'm on a case right now that I'm working that, and it had to do with these puppies that were abandoned on this highway. But let me tell you what you can do if anybody's listening. Let's say maybe I can't keep the dog or the cat or what have you, but here's what you can do and you should do is call your local law enforcement. By law, particularly in Louisiana and many states, at least 30 states, there are dumping animals is a felony. It's a crime. So what you can do is you stay there, make sure that animal that's been dumped, that you stay there and make sure you can see what you can do to help, protect, or what have you. Call your local law enforcement and tell them where you are, who you are, and get all that information. Take pictures, take videos, document everything that you see. And please, I hope if those who are listening to this, please do this because this is a big thing that I'm working on right now with my videos is document everything. Stop, document, try to help as best you can. Call law enforcement. Get a case number. When you call the dispatch, wherever law enforcement is at, wherever you live at, you get dispatch. You ask dispatch for a case number. That is extremely important because that case number actually presents that these law enforcement officers have to make a report. That's the way you follow up on whether or not that law enforcement agency, what they did, if they did anything. If they didn't do anything, you got a case number. And you can, with that case number, follow up with that complaint. Now, I know this takes a lot of work, but truly, this is important because this will begin to start changing how law enforcement starts to act. But we have to do something first. So you run across an abandoned animal, you get video, you get pictures, you call law enforcement, you have them come out, you get a case number from dispatch. Again, I repeat, that's important. Now, law enforcement might not show up. They say, we don't have anybody to come. Or I would have, you know what? You pull that case number, find out what happened. If nothing happened, then you go to the chief law enforcement officer. That may be the sheriff, that may be his chief deputy, but you go and make the complaint. And you do it in writing. You do it in writing because I will tell you, just to talk or communicate without writing, things just go by the wayside. When it's in writing, you have a paper trail. Start a paper trail. If you really truly want to help that animal, you start a paper trail. And that's the first thing you do. Like I've sent out a couple of certified letters now. I've got certified letters out about things. Let's say the chief law enforcement officer doesn't do anything about it. Your second step is the district attorney's office. That is your second step that you write a letter. Again, paper trail, paper trail. All right, the district attorney. And then they may do something. You may have an action. At least do something. All right? Let's say they just ignore you. Nobody does anything. Your next step is your state police, their crime department. You call them. There's always someone. The point is, there's always someone that you can go above to get something done about animals that are being dumped. Again, I repeat, that is a crime, and law enforcement should investigate it. I get carried away. You notice that.
That's quite all right. It's good to be passionate about animals. Do you have that in Soul of the Silent for listeners who care but feel powerless what they can actually do? Does the book go over that as well?
Yes, I do. I have a lot of books. Soul of the Silence kind of is about who we are as a person. You read this book and it's going to tell you really seriously about how you are, your feelings, and other people's feelings, and what you look for, and what you look for in yourself. It's like looking into a mirror. If you would read this book, it's like looking in a mirror at yourself. That's exactly what it's like. It's going to tell you exactly what kind of person that you may or may not be. But it's a kind of a deep insight about who you are.
And what do you hope people will take away after reading Soul of the Silent?
One thing that I hope they take away from is that they develop, and I don't know if that's a good word or not, but they look at animals in a different light instead of looking at them as property or looking at them as a non sentient being. They're going to see animals that are in a different perspective. That's what I was hoping to get out of this book, is that when people read it, they'll actually see what animals and truly how animals feel and how you feel as a person and what maybe things that you can do to change the way your compassion and your heart is. And so I love that book. It's one of my better books because it's a book that was taken from a lot of years on this earth and dealing with people and animals. So it's a heart wrenching book that I had put together. Unlike my other books, some of the other books are factual in nature. This is a heartfelt looking at yourself and animals.
And then I think one thing too about the book is even if you are a compassionate person and even if you are an animal lover like us and don't look at animals as property, I refer to the animals in my house almost as people.
I got one on my lap. I should have called him Velcro.
But one thing that I would like to say is whether or not you are already an animal lover, compassionate like us, this is still a really good read. It's a good reference for you to use to tell other people that maybe will help change people's perspectives on how they look at animals.
I hope. I really do, because if they'll take the book seriously, if they'll buy the book and take it seriously and really read through it, then I'm hoping that something will cause a change in you, because we need so many more people to help animals. Because right now, from the early years of my life till now, animals have come up on the short stick, short end of everything. They're still abused very badly, particularly now. I think you brought this point up. This is a really bad time. People are trying to rehome animals or try to adopt animals. Our local government, and I go back to my number one issue, our local government should have laws that tell, you know what, when you get an animal, that animal should be licensed, it should be health checked, and it should be spay or neuter. Unless you have a particular license, if you're a breeder and you have a bona fide breeding farm, that's different. But if you're a person who is looking for a pet or whatever, you know what, spay neuter should be done. Licensing of that animal should be done. Health certificate should be done to let and not only does that protect you and your family, but it protects others, it protects the animals, and then we wouldn't have the problem of euthanasia, because that's another big issue that I'm writing about right now is euthanasia. Millions of animals are being euthanized, healthy animals, because our local government, for the most part, and I don't mean where I live at, just in general, local government will not do their job. Law enforcement will not do their job. And that, again, I reference that with there are good law enforcement agencies, there are good local governments that take animal life serious. But again, I have to look at the generalization of what I see. And in my opinion, there are many people that needs to change.
Thank you for sitting down with me today to talk about your book.
I was happy to do it.
And before we end this episode, is there anything else that you would like to add?
I would appreciate if you're a person that is looking to help animals and truly help animals. I got some great books. I put a lot of into those books. And one of them is animal advocacy, how to be an animal advocate. I've got how to investigate animal abuse. There's a number of books that you can get that I put my heart and soul in these books, and I think you'll find that. And so if you're interested in working with animals, then I suggest that you would go to Amazon under Dr. Mark McMorris Jr. Not that I'm plugging my book, but I am. And so anyway, that's the only thing I had to say.
All right. Thank you for letting me come out and tour Mark's Animal Rescue. I had a really good time speaking with you today.
Thank you. I'm glad y'all came. Appreciate it.
All right. Thanks.
That's all the time that we have for today's episode. Thank you for listening, and we hope you join us next week. If you know somebody that loves animals as much as I do, please send them our way. We would love to talk to them. If you are enjoying our show, please consider leaving us a donation. 100% goes to our animals.
Bars in the night, claws in the fight, whiskers twitch and tails take flight. They're calling in stories to spin from the wild to the heart within. Broken wings and hopeful springs, we're the voices for these things. Animal posse, hear the call. We stand together, big and small. Rescue tales, we've got it all. Animal posse, saving them all. The vet's got tips, the rescuer's grit, the foster homes where love won't quit. From a pup in the rain to a bird in pain, every soul's worth the strain. Animal posse, hear the call. We stand together, big and small. Rescue tales, we've got it all. Animal posse, saving them all. Every caller tells a tale, every howl a whispered wail. We rise up, we never fail. This is the bond, the holy grail. Animal posse, hear the call. We stand together, big and small. Rescue tales, we've got it all. Animal posse, saving them all. Every caller tells a tale, every howl a whispered wail. We rise up, we never fail. This is the bond, the holy